Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. What is up? What is up? How are you guys doing today? Oh, thank God. Thank God. Rumble has changed the plussy to just a basic thumbs up, at least on browser. I don't know if, woo! I don't know if they've changed it on mobile yet. I don't know if they've changed it on mobile yet, but they have at least changed it on browser. That's right. I can now just say, hit the damn thumbs up. Hit the damn thumbs up if you like the show. I mean, you don't have to. If you don't like the show, don't. For the love of Christ, don't be a liar. That would be terrible. But I am glad. I didn't like the plus button. I think it was very confusing. It was weird. Saying plussy always made me feel a little bit greasy. Like I was at the wrong Mexican restaurant for too long. You know, when you're like sitting there and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is nice. I'd like a quesadilla. And oh, God, that table looks like it's shimmery. My table looks like it's shimmery. Oh, is that crusted salsa? God, I hope that's salsa, not blood from a bar fight. Yes, many improvements are clearly evident in Rumble. They've got a whole new UI going. It's looking really sharp. I hear there's some, let me check this out. There's some scalability shit going on with the quality of the stream. Yeah, they got good stuff going. So I'm very happy to see that. Again, from what I understand of Rumble's team is they're working hard on making improvements and just making it an all-around better experience. So that is great. Tonight, we've got some topics to cover. We've got, I have this titled like super gaily, like it's a law review paper or whatever. Guns in courts, the societal struggle to reconcile freedom. And also we have the Supreme Court on the massive 2020 election lawsuit that I have gotten endless emails and messages just asking me to cover this thing. So we're going to cover it a little bit. That's going to be in the second hour of the show. I'm not going to say anything that will violate YouTube's wonderful, benevolent, Mama Susan approved terms of service. But I am going to comment on it, and commenting on anything related to the 2020 election is highly risky on YouTube. So just for the sake of commentary and mitigating that stupid risk, that'll be in the latter portion of the show that will happen on Rumble. But again, there will not be any TOS violations on YouTube because YouTube doesn't police your actions on other platforms, but they police your announcements of your intentions to violate terms on another platform, which is this weird meta policing that goes on. But I don't have any intentions of violating anything. I'm just a humble legal commentator and a happy and wonderful person who probably likes to drink whiskey from time to time. So we'll be doing that over there. And we've got someone in the chat that I'm going to have a big shout out for in just a little bit. He dropped a super chat just now. His name is Donald Dolan. He's been a supporter of the show for quite some time. And I'm going to wait till more people kind of filter in. But we're going to talk about Donald's GoFundMe a little bit because Donald's in a nasty spot. And I was informed of a GoFundMe on his behalf. And I verified and vetted this thing through multiple sources. So I wanted to do that and make sure that when I talked about it, I could talk about it with confidence and let people know that this is a real thing. So we're going to talk about his GoFundMe a little bit. I'm going to make a donation. I'm going to ask people to support for it. I don't do that. I don't make specific requests to support things unless I'm willing to put the money down, unless I'm willing to vet that out. I have done so. And this came late last week. And I wasn't able to talk, like I didn't have shows by the time I was able to get everything vetted. So I posted about it on Locals, but we're going to talk about it on the show when we get later into the show with more people watching. Because if there's, a member of my community who I can direct people to say, hey, if you got a couple bucks, this person could really use it for a legitimate reason, then I want to do that. So we're going to do that a little bit later. That's a preview. But what he said in his super chat was, hi, Nick, I just wanted to thank you and all your patrons for all your help and support for the GoFundMe for my knee replacement surgery. So we're going to cover that a little bit later because this guy's got kind of it's been a rough time. We'll say it's been a rough time, and he's always been nice and supportive of other people. And so I want to make sure that if I can direct any support his way, that I do that. So that's, can I get the fuck out of here? Headphones in the way. So I keep running over them with my, or running over the cord with my chair. It's driving me nuts. All right. So we're going to talk about guns in court. Specifically, there's been two decisions that really matter right now. And these all come in the wake of the New York State Pistol and Rifle Association versus Bruin, I think is the other party there. We're going to be talking about there's a concealed carry law that went into effect in New Jersey, and parts of it have been blocked by a court applying that case temporarily blocked, applying that case. The full case will be heard later. So we're going to talk about the details of that and what these states are trying to do that is potentially violative of the Second Amendment. What it's really doing is setting up the circuits to take positions on these things so the Supreme Court ultimately has to resolve them and do something about it. And to do something about it. And that's what we're going to talk about with that case. And the next case, which is huge, out of the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit has come out and overturned the Trump bump stock ban. That's right. Very, very favorable to the right. President Donald Trump did implement a very unfavorable and, in my opinion, completely unconstitutional ban on bump stocks. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has finally ruled on this thing and said, no, you can't fucking do it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. And again, this is going to be couched in the general commentary of society trying to balance freedom and its perspective or perceptions on guns and gun violence and how that is working out and where I think things should go. We'll talk about that very much. Once we move over to Rumble, we're going to be talking about that 2020 election lawsuit that went up to the Supreme Court. We'll do unbreaded and all of that stuff. Finally, before we get into everything, we've got tomorrow, I will be on P-Dog Knight's show. I'll be tweeting about it, putting it out on Locals as we get closer. That's around 3 p.m. Central Time, if I remember right. I'll be on a show with him. Legal Mindset will be on my show tomorrow here at the normal time. Thursday, I will be on Legal Mindset show. So I haven't talked to him in a while. We're gonna do a nice little show exchange. It'll be fun. He'll be over here. I'll be over there. I think that is around 5 or 6 p.m. Central Time tomorrow over on his show. And then, of course, I'll have my show. And then we'll do the Friday panel show. Missed it last week because I wasn't streaming on Friday. We'll do the Friday panel show, chill, jokes and comedy and fun stuff, all Friday, we'll deal with that. I think that's what we got. I think that's what we the Discord will be back open really soon. The hell? Sorry, I thought I heard something. Really soon. Like possibly by end of next week at the latest. So for those of you who really liked Discord and the Discord dynamic, that is coming back. And it'll have a whole new set of of shit to try and keep down the type of crazy that happened that I needed to shut it down for in the first place. But it'll be back in the same sort of capacity that it was in before. So there you go. That'll be there. And as always, no one will be banned for criticism of me. Despite what people may say or whatever, you can say whatever the fuck you want in the Discord. But there will be more clear rules about what happens if people violate the Discord terms of service, if they're posting not safe for work content in safe for work channels, or if they're posting outright illegal content. That will be dealt with in a more clear and direct way. And I don't like moderating shit. I don't like doing it, but it has to be done. So fun times for all, but that'll be back. The one thing I'm really looking forward to is rescheduling the live chats that I used to do because I really miss doing those. And my schedule just kept getting fucked up. So looking at finding a time that can be consistent with those, that I can be consistent with those and actually make. We'll see how that goes, but that's that. My Rumble side is echoing. Well, I can't fix that. I have no idea. There shouldn't be an echo, but okay. K to the Swiss says, don't lend your hot rods to friends, regardless of what they promise. I'm out 20K. Thanks, friend. Generally speaking, you shouldn't lend your car to anybody because you can actually become civilly liable for shit that they do in your car. You have to be really, really fucking careful with that. So that's something just in general, but I'm sorry to hear that, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Next, Matrix says, I love you. Heart, heart, heart. Oh, thank you. Sassy Gal Beauty says, almost 1 year member. Love Nick and Guess. Hey, thank you, Sassy Gal Beauty. George Lopez says, Brandon Herrera had an episode with Kyle Rittenhouse. Maybe you can reach out to Brandon and see if you can get Kyle Rittenhouse on your show. End goal, ask Kyle balls or no balls on Fuda. Lol, Godspeed, Nick. Cheers. Yes, no, I have direct contact with Kyle now. There were some complications with it over the past year. Those roadblocks have finally been removed, and I'm merely waiting on Kyle to confirm the date with me to do that. As soon as that is confirmed, it'll be announced. It'll be, and we'll go full bore into the interview. It'll be a great time. We're gonna have a blast, I think, talking to Kyle. And there's been a lot of life that's happened to him after this trial too. So I'm really interested in that shit as well. But we'll get that done at some point in the near future, I hope. But we were shooting for the first week of the year, but my first week of the year got truncated, and then now we're just trying to actually nail down the right time and the right day. So we'll get that. We're also going to be doing a general gun stream soon. I know it seems like a lot of gun topics because we're talking Kyle Rittenhouse. We got gun topics tonight, but a general gun stream with Larry Correa and maybe some other gun people very, very soon. Full on like just guns, beer, freedom type stream. So that's coming up in the near future as well. And I think this is all of the announcements. God, it's a lot of announcements. Mostly Gluten says, is there another 40K painting stream in the works? And when will it happen? Yes, I think Az had the coup for something or some sort of thing, fucked up his voice. So we're just kind of waiting on him to recover. But yes, that'll happen very soon. So you have a date with Kyle and you just need to nail him down. I mean, whatever kind of hobbies you like, I ain't one to judge. Oh shit. No. Damn. Nailing someone down. That's some hardcore. That's putting the M. No, the S? The S in BDSM right there. Don't forget to announce you're gay. Do I have to anymore? Thought everybody knew that. Not everybody knew that. But anyway, okay. Let's get into it, I guess. Let's get into it. Liberty Prime, I didn't miss your super chat. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'll read it now, but typically I read the $20 ones first. I get to the other ones a little bit later, but I got you. It says Governor Donut of Illinois just signed a ban into place that goes against McDonald, Brewer, and Heller and pretty much any gun-related case law. Yep. Yeah. And I might talk about that. I might bring on Fudbusters or Benjamin Blatt or both to talk about that as well. There's a lot of gun stuff going on, and it's going to be really interesting because the Second Amendment just doesn't have a lot of case law behind it, and the case law behind it is shit. It is absolute shit. Hey, speaking of Benjamin Blatt, what's up? What's up, dude? We got to schedule a show because there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot going on. Yeah, we'll talk on that really soon. We'll set that up. I'll hit you up. Twiggy Buick says, "How was the tattoo convention? Did you check out the sideshow performers I sent you on Locals?" I did not get to any sideshow performances. I wasn't really there when they were happening. But I did, the convention was fun. Did get ink. It's under a bandage right now. Once it's fully once I can take the bandage. Brief aside, my understanding of the aftercare for tattoos is basically keep it nice and moisturized for several days, and using like an ointment like Aquaphor or whatever. This guy put a bandage on, said leave this on for like 4 days, and then you just have to use clear lotion afterwards for a week, which is way easier aftercare than what I had 20 years ago. So I don't know. I'm just waiting to pull that thing off. So it'll be cool. And Barton Bella, no, Nick did not total his car. My car is just fine. Oh my God. the rumors are weird, but no, I actually did a stream with the car on Locals, and there will be more when spring comes around. So, all right, let's get into this fucking subject, shall we? We'll start with the New Jersey one. Okay, New Jersey's new gun law is partially paused by a federal judge. Beauty Bomb with Carol says, "Hey, Nick, sorry to be a downer, but I had to say goodbye to my pup Mia today. She had a heart disease and her heart gave out today doing what she loves, playing ball. She was a good girl. I will miss her." Oh, God damn it. That sucks. Sorry to hear that, Carol. But hey, at least, like you said, she was doing what she loved. So Mia will be missed. Mia will be missed. Sorry to hear that. I didn't know if you want to toast or anything. If you do, tag me. But you don't have to send more money or anything. Just tag me. But you didn't request one, so it's kind of weird. Did I say why I skipped the Twitch stream Monday night? I wasn't feeling like doing one. Simple answer. Okay. A federal judge on Monday temporarily blocked portions of New Jersey's new firearms law that creates gun-free zones in various public places. U.S. District Judge Renee Marie Bum, who was appointed by former President George Bush, granted a temporary restraining order blocking provisions that prevented people from carrying firearms in libraries, museums, bars, and restaurants, and restaurants where alcohol is sold, as well as entertainment facilities and private property, unless authorized by the property's owner. Now, this is interesting. This is kind of a state-by-state sort of provision. And Minnesota has some sorts of, they attempt to do these sorts of restrictions. They attempt to do this from time to time, but it doesn't really match up. The way it works is you're presumptively able to carry just about anywhere. Now, if an owner of an establishment gives you some sort of notice that you're not welcome to carry guns or whatever on the premises, it's not illegal for you to do so. They could just have grounds to ask you to leave. And if you don't leave, they have grounds to call in to have you listed as a trespass. It's really the same thing as not having a law at all. Like, frankly, if you're the owner of an establishment, you have a right to ask people to leave for any particular reason you want. But these laws seek to skirt that. They seek to put a burden on the gun carrier rather than the place of business. See, they're putting a different burden. I guess it's more on the place of business to affirm that they want guns in the premises, which is a weird thing to do. It compels sort of speech. If you're a restaurant owner that is fine with people having guns on there, you now have to tell them, you have to post it. And having to post that shit is a weird compulsion to allow people to exercise their rights. Like, it's also a strange thing to force someone to out themselves in a way that they might not want to. Or if someone's able to be ambivalent or neutral about guns, like, say they don't necessarily want them in there, but they also realize that people have kind of a right to, carry guns around there. So they're like, well, okay, I don't want it. I'm not desiring it, but I'm not against it either. They now have to tell the world that they do. And that's requiring them to make a political statement. It's requiring them to make a political statement about their establishment that doesn't need to be made. That's similar to why I don't like having people post a ban on firearms in a place as well. In a way, it's forcing them to make a statement about a hotly public political issue that could impact their business. And they don't want to do that. Most businesses just want to make money. They just want to sell my shit to you, and then you can fuck off and we can have our own opinions and everything's great. Like, that's okay. That's how business, frankly, should be. That's what it's supposed to be. But we're in this new era of business control, of the government trying to force public policy enforcement on private entities, and then hiding as a shield behind this sort of unconstitutional thing, right? Like, look at what the government's trying to do. You can't carry a gun in this place, which is perfectly legal for you to carry a gun in, unless the owner makes a political statement that allows you to exercise your right. So if the owner doesn't do that, the government gets to hide behind a tacit private approval on the infringement of rights of the citizen. Well, that's fucking garbage. It's like the shit they're doing on Twitter, but more nefarious and more passive. Twitter's active, right? They've got FBI people talking to Twitter staff and every other social media platform, make no mistake, telling them you can do this, you can't do that, you got to moderate this, we need you, we really want you to moderate this thing and this thing and this thing. We really want this government censorship here, here, and here, but it's got to come from you, not us. We didn't ask for this. Well, that's what they're doing here, except they're making it even easier. We're not even going to ask you to ask. We're going to just ask you to be quiet and allow us to infringe the rights of people. Your silence is your complicity in it. That's the enforcement mechanism we need. Your refusal to put up a sign affirming this thing is the way we will enforce it. It's really insidious, and it really shouldn't stand when you get down to what this actually means for society. Private owners saying, I don't want to have guns in my private establishment, just fine. Just fine. That's an okay thing. And they can say, hey, you got a gun in here. I'm going to ask you to go out, store it somewhere away from here, do whatever. You're welcome to come back in, but I don't want to, I personally don't want guns in my business. That's a private decision that can be made by anybody. Same thing with your house, your apartment, your car, whatever. You're not forced to keep somebody in the premises that you are in and have control over if you don't want to. However, however, requiring someone to affirm that is a step too far, in my opinion. I also think, again, requiring someone to be non-affirming of that would be a step too far, but that's not actually a requirement, right? Because whether you have a sign posted or not, you can always say, hey, I don't want you in here. Why? You got this gun. I don't really trust it. I don't trust you. I don't trust the gun. I don't trust whatever. I'm going to ask you to leave. You can always do that. You don't need the damn sign. The sign's a weird pretext that has almost no real effect at all, because you can still go into those places with a gun and not be trespassed and not be violating a law until they ask you to leave, and you don't. But that's how it works anyway. So I really hate this compelled speech shit. And I really hate it being used to infringe upon essential liberty, but to do so through the tacit agreement of a private entity. All right, next. Let's see. Bum's ruling, which takes effect until the court fully considers the case, also pauses enforcement. And Beauty Bomb, I saw your message. We'll get to it in just a second. Also pauses enforcement of a provision restricting people from possessing firearms in vehicles unless the weapon was unloaded and contained in a securely fastened case. This is really, really fucking bad. Again, if you are able to carry, which in my opinion should be a constitutional carry, anybody should be able to carry unless they specifically lose that right. But that's not the system we have. That's what it should be. It's not the system we have right now. Right now, the system is, in some states, you have constitutional carry. In other states, you have a permitting requirement, which again, I disagree with, but exists. If you have the right to carry under either of those circumstances, then you should always be able to keep a gun in your car. I will go further and say the car is an extension of the domicile, and you have every right, in my opinion, to be safe and secure inside your domicile, even if the car is a mobile extension of it. And if somebody wants to attack you while you're in your vehicle, my opinion is you should be able to just start blasting. Fuck these people. Like this, carjackings are on the rise. All of this shit's on the rise. And you've got governments trying to stop people from defending themselves all over the place. No, thank you. No, thank you. So that being said, looking forward to seeing how the court rules on this. It's going to be a big deal. Again, right now, it's just pausing these provisions of the law. These provisions could actually remain in place after the court hears the full context, or these provisions and other provisions could be excised from the law, or the law could be scrapped entirely if it's too unmanageable to keep only portions of it. I assume there's a general severability clause in the law, which would say if anything is unconstitutional, it can be cut, but the rest of the law is still preserved so long as it's operable. That's how most laws are passed these days. So even if they are going to cut certain portions of it, they might do that. But we'll have to see how this resolves. The decision marks a crucial early victory for a group of state residents and guns rights groups who challenged the provisions as unconstitutional. The same day, Governor Phil Murphy, a Democrat, signed the law on December 22nd. The lawsuit, however, did not challenge other portions of the law, including other destinations of sensitive places where possessing firearms isn't permitted. And it'll be really interesting to see if they haven't challenged it, if they just think that this won't survive severability, or if they thought it would go too far. No idea. No idea why they didn't challenge this. Bum's decision was rooted in the Supreme Court's landmark decision last June in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which held that individuals have a right to carry a handgun for self-defense outside the home, and firearm regulations must be consistent with the country's historical tradition. None of these provisions are consistent with the country's historical tradition. So if this thing goes all the way up the chain, we could see the entire law struck down. But what this is all intended to do is all intended for a very specific sort of thing from both sides. They want to set up a circuit split on this, and that's what's going to ultimately happen. They've got a new regulation and a new standard coming with Bruin, or now in with Bruin. Now Bruin has to be tested to see where it goes. We have to eventually see if Bruin applied to US v. Miller overturns portions of or all of US v. Miller. The amount of restriction that's been in place on bad law since 1939 is crazy when you think about it. Again, maybe there's an argument to be made that the restrictions are reasonable. I disagree with this argument, but there's an argument to be made about that. I don't think they're reasonable. However, if they are, the answer is simple. Just pass an amendment to the Constitution to modify the second. Because right now, the second says, shall not be infringed. It's very clear. It's very obvious. It's unambiguous. Ambiguity was added to the Second Amendment in US v. Miller. Ambiguity has not existed in the Second Amendment up to US v. Miller. But it was added there. The court needs to resolve the ambiguity. And I don't think the historical tradition of this country is 1939. The historical tradition of this country is when the Second Amendment was passed. So we're talking 1791. We're talking all the way back. And if you're going to tell me that there were sensitive places that had outright legal bans on guns in those sensitive places, I think you're going to be remiss to find them. I think you're going to have a real fucking hard time. Now, there's a brief in some of these cases that was shared on Twitter the other day. And of course, some of the laws that they were citing from the late 1790s specifically banned Negroes and mulattoes from owning guns, using the parlance of the actual decisions that were in there and the laws that were being upheld by those decisions. Those are not blanket bans on firearms. Those would be roundly unconstitutional today, but that's the ammo that the government has in these anti-gun cases. They have shit relating to slaves, relating to literally lower class minorities at the time that this stuff was done. I mean, whatever you think about racial parity or equality today, whether you think it's fully equal, I think we're pretty damn close, honestly, to legal equality between races. I don't think there's a lot of work to be done there. Practical equality is a different thing that involves private parties and social sentiments, and is not something that can be regulated by government. That's a different story. But you're not going to regulate out like people's prejudices or personal experiences or just their personal decisions and preferences. You can't do that. They could try. They're going to fail. So whatever you think about that, I think we can all agree that in 1799, slaves and blacks were a literal different class of people. I mean, under the Constitution, many of them were counted specifically differently. They didn't have rights. They were actual property. Not all, and not in all places. But we're talking about now, if you were to enact a law that says, well, the dark ones can't have guns in a public place, I think that would run afoul of the 14th and 5th Amendments and equal protection. That's just not going to fly anymore. But that amendment didn't exist in 1799. So it was kind of allowed. it was kind of allowed back then. That shit does not pass anymore. You can't do it. You can't just say, well, except the Mexicans, though. And as funny as it is to say, yeah, you're cool, you're Italian, fuck off. That's funny to me. But in reality, that shit doesn't work. We've kind of gotten rid of that after that whole, what's that thing that happened? What was it called? The civil whore, something like that. Shit. So after that, in Reconstruction, we got 13th, 14th, and 15th and started applying everything a whole lot differently. And then, of course, that metastasized into the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s. And we set up Title VII, and we set up that race specifically cannot be discriminatory in the enactment and enforcement of laws. And all that shit happened. And the government's still like, yeah, but in 1799, those N-words couldn't have a gun. Holy shit, government. God damn. Can you try? Can you try a little? Okay, real quick. Beauty bomb with Carol. Let me. I did see that she was hoping to get a toast for the pet for Mia, and I got you. I got you. All right. To Mia, a beloved friend and companion for Carol, one who brought joy and peace into a home, who brought companionship into a life, and who will leave that life forever marked by love, by trust, and by the unending loyalty that only a dog can provide. Cheers to Mia. Cheers to Carol. Peace in her passing, lady. All right. DBZ says, side note, your neighbor can shine lights and recorders in your windows. Cops told me close your blinds. Privacy laws include this too. If your space isn't protected, minor child, what makes you think your damn gun is going to be safe? Sort of. They can shine lights into your property. Sort of. That's not entirely accurate. That can be either a trespass or a nuisance, depending on where they are when they do it. Very, very, very fucking quickly. And yeah, a neighbor cannot just interrupt your private enjoyment of your property. They can't just do that. But if your windows are open and visible, people can look into them. But it really depends. Like that encroachment onto your property for a trespass or being in a place that's not readily accessible, excuse me, that's one way to fuck that up. And the other way, shining a light, yeah, no, there's civil problems with that. That's interrupting the quiet enjoyment of your property. And you would certainly have a nuisance claim if someone is doing it. You inform them to stop and they continue to do that. So, but if you're walking by on a road or a sidewalk and you look and there's an open window, yeah. I mean, if you're walking around dicks out, be prepared. Someone might see you. That's okay. Like that's on you. But yeah, the idea that like a neighbor can come up and like shine a light into your window and look inside, yeah, that's that would be likely a trespass. Or if they're like across the way shining a light and then like trying to use a telescope to look in, I don't know if that would work or whatever, but if they're trying to do something like that, that light coming in could be disruptive of your quiet enjoyment of your property. Someone in locals asked, what about drones? Drones that are flying over your property without authorization or after you request them to leave would be technically a trespass. Your property rights, and it depends state by state, and it can actually depend specifically on the deed that you have to your house. Your property rights go vertically up and down from just the ground that you're on. So there is an upper limit to that. Like, you know, helicopters and planes can pass over your property pretty simply. But if you're talking a drone that's 30, 40 feet up, looking into your window or onto your property, again, if you inform the person that they need to leave, there's a possibility of trespass. There's a possibility of it. I'm not saying it's ironclad. None of this shit ever is. But saying blanket that, oh, you can just fly a drone and record into someone's house, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. So there's a whole lot to it. Okay. Julian Delfici says, first, thank you for putting up with what you do for our benefit. It is not lost on all of us. Second, agreed. They gave us amendments. Change the second or get the fuck out. Yes. Yes. get the fuck out. Or they made an amendment process for this. Okay, DBZ says, thank you, Ricada. They're across the road, 50 feet, but their house lights and camera are recording. Police say no trespass, and it's civil. It is civil at that point. A trespass, okay. Let's get into property law for just a second here. A trespass requires a physical encroachment onto property. So it requires your physical presence, or for you to intentionally or even unintentionally move something onto the property. Now, a criminal trespass tends to involve intent, right? Criminality requires intent almost all the time, or recklessness. If you create a situation in which a trespass will occur and then act in disregard of the situation that you create, you can get to criminal recklessness. That's a pain in the ass. Typically, what you're talking about for a criminal trespass is someone intentionally going on to, throwing on, moving on, driving on, flying into whatever someone's property. Okay, that's a trespass. A nuisance is a common law tort. Often there's a statutory nuisance as well in various states that involves the interference with the quiet enjoyment of property, but it does not require a physical presence. Now, there's states and there's states that go back and forth on that shit. Minnesota is one, and here's a weird way that this has gone back and forth. Actually, not far from my house, I think in Paynesville, Minnesota. It's either Paynesville or Litchfield. I think it's Paynesville. There's a farmer, and then there's an organic farm right next to it, right? And the farmer takes it, who's there first before the organic farmer, and this is key, takes a plane and crop dusts his own property. Now, when he does that, sometimes if the wind is right, that crop dusting will go onto a portion of the organic farmer's land, and then the organic farmer, due to their regulatory needs, has to till up that crop dusted land that's tainted by the chemicals, and then they have to leave that land non-producing for something like 3 years. The question becomes in Minnesota and then everywhere else, is that crop dusting, is that a sufficient physical trespass? The initial ruling, I think, was no. Then it was yes, because it's literal particulate matter going into the ground. Then it's gone back and forth several times. I don't even know the status of it right now, but the idea to me, like, that's clearly a physical encroachment. So, but that's a civil case, right? The crop dusting pilot is probably not intentionally spraying their property. He's spraying his own property, and wind will drift it on. If it's a trespass because it's a physical encroachment, then the crop dusting pilot is liable to the other party. If it's a nuisance because the other farm predates the organic farm, and the organic farm would presumably know that there could be some spillover of chemical onto their land, a nuisance is different. A nuisance requires, like, if you move to a space with information about how another thing is used, a nuisance is invalid. So if there's like a nasty chemical plant and you build a house right next door and be like, the smells of this chemical plant are ruining my property, like, you fucking move next to it, dummy. That's a different thing. But if the chemical plant explodes a glob of sludge, or like a truck dumps over and that spills onto your property, it doesn't matter that the chemical plant was there first, because that's a trespass and that's a whole different category. So I hope that helps kind of clear it up. The questions we get are smells, physical or not. I mean, smells are particulate matter that's picked up by nerves in our nose and then transmitted to our brains. Like when you smell shit, there's literally shit in your nose. That's a true thing. So is that sufficient particulate matter to trigger a trespass? Right now, no. But it might be at some point, depending on the science of this and how angry fucking lawyers are, and really how big of an influence some particular plaintiff has. That's going to be the ultimate decider of it. Let's be honest. Someone with $1 million to spend on litigation, on really good lawyers, and maybe with good standing in a community, who might have influence over some judges, can change a lot of shit real fucking quick. Shooting range noise could be a nuisance if the shooting range was built or created after your after your property, after you own the property. But if you move next to a shooting range, that's your fucking fault. But yeah, property law, usually boring. Nuisance versus trespass is actually, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of dynamics to it on the civil side. Criminal is different. Yeah, if you're getting the cops involved, it has to be a criminal trespass. There has to be a level of intent. And typically on the criminal side, you got to have some sort of damage being done. So in your scenario, you've got lights. I think you said, yeah, across the road, 50 feet. House lights are on and their camera's recording. You're going to have real trouble on the criminal side. Now, if that caused you some sort of harm, like if they recorded you walking around with your penis out and they posted that to the internet, you got a different thing there because now you've got harm, you've got some intentionality going on, stuff like that could be an issue. But it's going to really depend on the state statute and it's going to be kind of thin. They're going to have to do something to nasty violate that thing. Okay. Whew. That was a lot of discussion about that, but I'm good with it. Frederick Little, what's up, brother? Thank you for the large donation. Oh, damn. I really appreciate that. Potentially criminals in the chat says all gun laws are racist. Yes. Yes. And then finally, DBZ also says, what about peeping Tom laws? Different story. Going to be state specific and really specific to the statute. And you may have to prove they're intentionally peeping, which there could be evidence of. But that's going to get highly technical. You're going to have to find that. You'd have to show the cops at least probable cause to make a further investigation that they're doing peeping Tom stuff. And again, that's going to really depend on the state statute. And he also says, I get it. So it's intentional versus non-intentional. In criminal law, intentionality is of some sort is a requirement. It's called the mens rea, the criminal mindset. The idea that you are out to do the thing, and that thing doesn't necessarily mean you're out to do the bad thing, but it means that you're out to do the thing, and that thing can turn out badly. That's where we get to criminality versus non-criminal. You always have to fulfill that mens rea requirement. All right. And that's sometimes really, really difficult. And we get into some murky stuff with things like, that has strict liability, like possession of an unlawful firearm, for example, since we're in themes, possession of child pornography. But the question is not, did you intend to possess the illegal thing? The question is, did you intend to do the thing that led to liability in the first place? So if it's an unlawful firearm and you intended to own a firearm, maybe you didn't know it was unlawful, right? Well, not knowing it's unlawful isn't a shield against you if you intended to own the firearm. If you didn't know it was a firearm in the first place, like maybe you buy an old cane that was a modified pipe firearm at some auction, you had no idea because you had to unscrew something. I don't know, some crazy fucking scenario like that. Like, I just thought I had a cane, motherfucker. That is different because that's not you intending to own a firearm. But if you intend to own a firearm and it's illegal, you've satisfied the mens rea. And the same thing is you're intending to acquire a picture and you're like, I'm trying to acquire a pornographic picture. Now the pornographic picture happens to be of a 15-year-old. You're like, well, I didn't know she was 15. Yeah, that's not going to help you. You intended to own the picture. Now, if you intend to buy a copy of National Geographic from some guy on eBay and inside he has taped a bunch of pedo pictures, you're like, Jesus fucking hell. And you throw that shit away, you burn it or whatever. You're not liable at that point. You didn't intend to own something pornographic. You just intended to own a magazine. Someone had modified it. You didn't have a way to inspect it. So you have two options: destroy it immediately and never tell anybody on earth, which is a good option. And then the other option is you can turn it in to the police and say, whoa, this is what I got. I tend to not recommend even safely talking to police especially on shit like that. So, but you got to talk to your own lawyer on that shit. I'm not giving anybody legal advice on that. You decide that on your own. That's not up to me. But there. So I hope that discussion was helpful. Squizgar says, if I crop dust my coworkers, is that a trespass? Only if you do it directly in their mouth. She should always do. She should always do. Okay. What do we got next? What do we got next? Okay, so back to this for just a minute, and then we'll go into the other case. All right, quote, the state may regulate conduct squarely protected by the Second Amendment only if supported by a historical tradition of firearm regulation. Bum ruled. Here, plaintiffs have shown that the defendants will not be able to demonstrate a history of firearm regulation to support any of the challenge provisions. New Jersey had in part contested the plaintiff's challenge on standing, meaning their capacity to file a suit, but Bum rejected the state's arguments on that front, which largely centered on the residents not showing an imminent injury because they had no concrete plans to visit the challenge locations. That's bullshit. By the way, you don't need concrete plans to visit a challenge location because you can go to those locations at any time and the impact will still be there. Quote, this has substantially impacted their ability to carry a handgun at all within the state, Bum said of the new law. It is the court's view that such threatened injury is sufficient to show standing at this stage with respect to the challenge provisions. Yes, of course it is. Well, they didn't say they want to go to this specific public place. And you'd never know what businesses are going to say we want and don't want guns, right? Like they don't know. Well, I don't know if I want to go to a restaurant. Like I have no plans to go to a restaurant with a sign that says, oh, you can bring guns here, because they haven't put the signs up yet. You wouldn't know. And then finally, New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin, Democrat, said he was disappointed with the judge's decision. Oh, and so many people are just disappointed these days, right? We are disappointed by the court's ruling, which is inconsistent with the Second Amendment. Nope. And will make New Jerseyans considerably less safe. Nope. Platkin said in a statement, but this temporary order is just that, temporary, and we look forward to continuing to press our case, including ultimately on appeal. He knows they're going to lose. He knows they're going to lose this case. He knows that the law is not, or that the Constitution does not jive with this law. This law does not comport with the Second Amendment. They're going to lose. Then they're going to appeal to try and get a new interpretation of what the Second Amendment means. That's the translation of the gov cuck speech that's going on. Fucking hate these attorneys general. I hate them. They're awful people. Awful. And yes, that includes mine. Fuck you, Keith Ellison. Get wrecked, piece of shit. And Gruel. I think it was Gruel in New Jersey before this guy. They all suck. They all suck. Matthew Harder, hey, Rackets, I like doing low altitude paramotor flights in autumn over the Great Lakes in Michigan. The nature is the beauty I want to capture. Can I capture that beauty on my GoPro without being sued? Also, direct stream win. Okay, if the question is ever, can I do something without being sued? The answer is no. There's nothing to prevent anybody from suing you, even over something completely ridiculous. There is nothing you can do to determine that you will not be sued. Now, will they be able to prevail on a suit if you're flying over, taking pictures, low altitude? As long as you're in compliance with FAA regulations on your flight, and if people make requests of you to like not do things, like you're not flying, really, like even a low altitude flight, you're probably above the property line for a lot of people, that sort of altitude limit. And again, different communities, different states handle what your vertical rights actually are, because there's a bunch of easements that go over it. You can't and a lot of times, you can't build above 2-3 stories in a lot of residential areas. And then your rights they start to get curtailed at that point. So it really depends. But as long as you're complying with your FAA regulations, you're probably going to be okay. But I don't want to say definitely. There's no way to insure against a lawsuit. I mean, I'm being sued right now by a retard. So, I mean, there's not much you can do about it. Speaking of which, I will be covering my lawsuit against the retard very soon. That's That's coming. That full coverage is coming. I'm trying to decide how to do it specifically, if I'm going to just do it all on my channel, or if I'll do like the bulk of the coverage on locals with some highlight streams or things. Because when things really get going, it might be like a lot, and I don't want to I don't want to just cover me all the time. Although I am a narcissist, so I like that. We'll see, But yes, the ADA has sent me a letter and says that their retard went rogue. They're gonna send me a new one, a new retard that I have to cater to and pander to. Even though I already have one still in my locals chat, but they need, my channel's gotten big enough that I need two. So they're going to send me a new one. And I asked for one that just won't drool on the carpet. Like, that's my only request. I'll accommodate them. I'll build ramps that they can fall off of or whatever. It doesn't bother me. But since my one has gone rogue, I will be covering that very soon. Just got to get a couple preliminary things going. And I also have to make sure that all of my coverage will be done specifically within, I mean, this is in my state, in my jurisdiction. It's a case that I'm in. So I do have to be a little bit different about how I talk about things, because now I do have fucking weird ethical obligations. I don't think they involve calling someone a retard, though, do they? I guess we'll find out next time on Recada Law Z. But as soon as I get like everything ready for that, I'll announce it. I'm going to make a big hubbub about it. I'm trying really hard to avoid a GoFundMe on it. But tomorrow I wire out the retainer. So depending on how things go, I might do one. I really don't want to. I would love to find a different way to monetize it than to do the standard GoFundMe. Okay? I don't. I want people to get something. I want people to get something for their participation. And so I would like to do it in a different way. I don't know if that's going to be like exclusives on locals or like something else. I don't know. I'm going to try and figure it out. But I don't want to keep people in the dark. I'm very much in favor of doing everything in the open. I told my attorney today, I said, you realize I'm going to cover this publicly, right? He said, I'd have it no other way. He knows. He knows I'm going to do it. But I have to do it right. I have to do it fucking carefully. Like, that's what I have to do. So. Sell shirts with your court documents. That'd be good. All right. So we'll do. Aren't you representing yourself? No, I'm not an idiot. Jesus Christ. No. I today retained officially Mark Randazza in the Randazza legal group to represent me. If I'm going to be represented in a First Amendment case, I'm going to hire probably the best firm in the country to handle it. So, yeah. Let's see what's next. Oh yeah, the next case. We got the next case. Got the next case. Let me stop that for a second. Pull this up. Oh, and I got a couple like filler pieces for fun in there in a minute. But we're going to do bump stocks real quick here first. How's that? Do that real quick. Okay. Can you sue yourself for allowing yourself to get fat? You can, but you'll lose. What you need to do is get less fat. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. And I've heard that alcohol addiction can actually make you less fat. That's what I've been told. So it doesn't have to do with eating less. It doesn't have anything to do with working out more. It has everything to do with just liquor addiction. So just try that. Just drink a lot. I'm a doctor and you can take my advice. If you just drink all of the liquor, you'll lose all the weight. That's a fact. If that doesn't work, just do cocaine and meth. Hey, what's up, Steph? How are you doing? Okay, a U.S. appeals court blocks a ban on rapid fire bump stocks. So here we go. Here's the bump stock. Nolans. A Trump administration ban on bump stocks, devices that enable a shooter to rapidly fire multiple rounds from semi-automatic weapons after an initial trigger pull, was struck down Friday by a federal appeals court in New Orleans. So this is the Fifth Circuit. This is the Fifth Circuit. We've got the ban was instituted after a gunman perched in a high-rise hotel using bump stock equipped weapons massacred dozens of people in Las Vegas in 2017. Okay, forgive my ignorance because it got really hard to research any reliable information on the Las Vegas shooting. Did you guys remember the Las Vegas shooting occurred? God, this is the first time I've heard it mentioned in the media since. But were the guns he actually shot using bump stocks? I'm not actually sure on that. I couldn't remember if that was like if they linked the guns that he fired to bump stocks. I know that he had a bump stock. I know, but he had some firearms that were in there that weren't used or they didn't know if they were used. So I'm seeing yeses, I'm seeing nos, and this is the problem with this case. And let me briefly expound on this. This is the problem with the public discussion and the outrage porn of mass shootings. All right? Well, let's get big. Let's get oh. Now we're in it. The outrage porn of mass shootings and the media's reporting of it leaves us with more questions than answers. And it stems from two places. One, the sensationalism, blood in the ink sells paper. And two, it's the lumping of all mass shootings into the same category when they are categorically different. Mass shootings are really, really unique events many, many times. The Las Vegas mass shooting in particular is an anomalous, unique event, but it gets lumped in with mass shootings generally. Mass shootings occur all the time. Most of those mass shootings involve either a family incident in which multiple people are shot by one crazy person with a death wish for themselves and their family, or gang violence, typically related to the illegal drug trade or some sort of territory surrounding that. We get mass shootings all the time. A drive-by in which 3 people or more are injured could be a mass shooting. A drive-by in South Chicago is completely different from the Las Vegas shooting, but we lump them in and categorize them the exact same way. And the reason is pure bullshittery to pump up gun statistics for an anti-firearm narrative. But the problem in the United States is not gun violence. The problem in the United States is almost entirely fucking gang violence. Without major metropolitan area violence, which is predominantly located in 5% of metro city blocks. There's been studies on this in every country in the world, in every society, and 50% of violent crime is located to 5% of metropolitan city blocks in every single fucking area code they've ever checked. All right? All of them. And yet, we treat this violence as if it's normal violence, as if it's indicative of whatever, but it's not. And so we now have this issue where if we remove major metropolitan areas, and just a couple of them from the United States crime statistics, we're somewhere in the middle of Europe for violence. And most people would agree that most of Europe is relatively safe, much safer than the US. The reality of that means if you are not in a gang and you are not buying drugs in a major metropolitan area, and specifically within a few city blocks that most people don't want to be in, you're probably not going to get gun violence. Like, you have a better than fucking good chance of not getting gun violence most of the time. Comparing that type of violence over Ray didn't sell the right number of crack rocks to Reggie is completely, so Reggie goes and sprays Ray and his 4 gay lovers. That is way fucking different than the Pulse nightclub shooting, than Uvalde, than Las Vegas, than the church shooting that happened down in Texas, Dylan Roof, right? These are all categorically different causes, different effects, different factors that go into it. We don't get to talk about any of this shit ever because the media won't acknowledge it. The FBI won't develop a better system of categorization because, of course, they don't want to. And the people who do talk about it get called racist, hateful, whatever. They're just not allowed. It's not favorable to categorize gun violence to particular demographics. And I don't even mean black versus white. Because in poor, predominantly white metro areas, you have the same problems. You have the same city block issue. It's just that most crime gets concentrated where criminal activity occurs. It's not fucking rocket science. So anyway, we don't get to talk about Vegas. And Vegas got swept under the rug real fucking quick. Let us never forget how quickly we were asked to forget Las Vegas. There are too many questions around that one. Too many questions. All right. Okay. Back to this. Let's see. The ban was instituted after a gunman perched in a high-rise hotel using bump stock of quick weapons, massacred dozens of people in Las Vegas in 2017. Gun rights advocates have challenged it in multiple courts. The 13-3 ruling in the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is the latest on the issue, which is likely to be decided at the Supreme Court. So what happened was they had a ruling. They asked for a rehearing en banc, which means the entire appeals court panel sat and the entire appeals court panel ruled on it. Notice 13-3. So you had 3 judges who initially upheld the ban. The en banc I believe the en banc rehearing came in, and so at least 2 of these 3 judges were on the initial panel, and the rest of the judges 13-3. That should tell you something about how important the makeup of your appeals panel can be to a particular issue. Is that out of 16 judges, out of a 16 judge pool, they pulled 2 of the 3 that were against bump stocks. The decision doesn't have an immediate effect on the ban, though, because the case now moves back to the lower court to decide how to proceed. The case was somewhat unique because the issue involves not the Second Amendment, but the interpretation of federal statutes. Opponents of the ban argued that bump stocks do not fall under the definition of illegal machine guns in federal law. They don't. The U.S. Bureau of ATF and Explosives says they do, a position now being defended by the Biden administration. Quote, a plain reading of the statutory language paired with close consideration of the mechanics of a semi-automatic firearm reveals that a bump stock is excluded from the technical definition of machine gun. Well, gee, it took a fucking judge genius to figure out that this isn't a goddamn machine gun. Wow. How smart. How fucking smart. Kappa Upsilon Nu Tau. You need to stop spouting bullshit and cite your source. No, just go look it up, man. The studies were done in the 70s. They were done in, I'm trying to remember where they started. I think St. Louis. They were repeated in like New York, Chicago, LA. They were done in London. Go check them out. Do you think it's not true? Hold on. Wait a minute. You're going to call me out. Do you think it's not true that 50% of violent crime happens on 5% of metropolitan city blocks in a metro area? Have you been to any metro area? What do they always say? Like, don't go to that place. Why? Why don't you go to that place? Why is that? Is this shocking to you? Like, is that strange? Honestly, like, look, people talk about, like, I was going to Chicago last year, the year before, I can't remember. And my father-in-law's like, "Oh, you're going to be safe?" I'm like, "Yes. I'm not black. I'm not in a gang, and I'm not going to South Chicago. I'm going downtown where business people are. I'm going to be just fine." Like, this is not controversial. It's just shocking to hear it. But if you live in any metropolitan area, you know where not to go. If it's named after some civil rights movement, don't go to Martin Luther King Boulevard. Don't go to Cesar Chavez Street. Don't do that. That's where you get stabbed and probably raped, hopefully in that order. Like, it's just, don't do that. Like, you know this. It's like, I'm going to go to Malcolm X Drive. No, you aren't. No, you aren't. Don't do that. Don't go there. It's not good for you, man. Just drink bleach instead. It's way safer. Do not do that. This should not surprise you at all. But if you really like, go look it up. Like, it's out there. Malcolm Gladwell did an entire episode of his podcast dedicated specifically to these studies. Talked about it. It's the problem with profiling policing. And he wasn't saying that profiling is a problem. He was arguing that profiling works in policing, but it's not allowed. And that a lot of police departments know it. They know exactly where the crime happens. They deal with it all the time. All of their calls go to this specific area, but they're not allowed to profile people from that area because those people often are a particular protected ethnicity. In some places it's black, in some places it's Hispanic, in some places it might be Asian. If you have vice lords or whatever, I guess. Are they still around? Vice lords? God, I'm dating myself here. But like, this isn't strange. This isn't controversial. It's shocking again, because when you realize how concentrated 50% of the crime is, you go, holy shit. If we were allowed to profile, if police just started moving that crime. The other thing they found is that crime isn't very mobile, because typically those are economically non-mobile communities. People don't have the money to move somewhere else. So if you actually police the crime in those areas, you get good results, but they're not allowed to. So instead, we apply that same shit and those same sort of standards to, we apply those standards to places where there isn't heavy crime. We get the same fucking profiling of situations without profiling demographics. And that makes it okay. But that's why you get pulled over in the middle of fucking nowhere and they're looking for drugs in your car when you're just speeding. Or you got a turn signal out. Whoa, you might be a drug dealer. It's like, you know what? I'm probably not, though. I just really didn't realize that the light bulb in my fucking taillight went out. So, anyway, there's that. Sorry, rant over. Cynic says just 4% of blocks account for 50% of crime in many cities, and only 2 to 3 individuals from each street group actively engage in shootings. Yeah, it's nutty. It's crazy when you start to look into how localized a lot of crime is. And then, of course, as you get outside of those areas, the crime becomes a different nature, right? You start to get into family crime, and you do have some random crime that happens. But like when you start looking at different things, like there's a there's like a big child trafficking scare in our community for a while. And I hate to say in my small town community. And I hate to say this because it sounds really horrible. But white kids weren't really the danger. The reason we had a high trafficking problem in Wilmer, Minnesota is because two things: a huge illegal immigrant Mexican population and a huge Somali refugee population. You want people who distrust government, distrust help, and are particularly vulnerable. You go to the undocumented, or you go to refugee populations, which are insular and hard to track. But if you're just like a person, your kids were not entirely unlikely. There was a scare just a couple blocks from my house because this car was like driving really slow, and they pulled over, and there were two kids out playing in their backyard. Now they were pretty far removed from the road based on where this was, but they were trying to get the kids to come to the car. Perpetrators were allegedly of Somali descent. Kids were allegedly white. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. They don't attempt it. Now, they were never picked up. Wasn't a license plate. The kids ran inside, told their parents. Parents told the whole neighborhood. Everybody's on watch. Okay. But generally speaking, when you take kids from legal residents, they go to the police pretty quickly. And that's a big risk for traffickers. Not necessarily the police are effective. It's that it's more risk than when they could just grab an undocumented kid. And the fucking border crossing, like you want real trafficking issues, look no further than the southern U.S. border. Coyotes, what do? They take kids across the border. Rape and traffic. They get moved right in. Shoot the parents. You got a marketable object. Kill the parents, separate them from the parents, whatever. Sometimes the parents are sending their kids into the States without the parents being able to go. Oh, you go for a better life. Go find your uncle or whatever in Santa Clara. Don't worry. This shady guy is going to violate international law to bring you across a border through an underground tunnel. He's not going to rape you on the other end. It's really unfortunate. It's really terrifying. But when we don't make these distinctions because it's not politically correct, we fearmonger. We fearmonger people out of reality. And people should, of course, they should be concerned about their kids. Of course. You should protect them, monitor them. Shouldn't let them out in strange places. You should have ways to contact them. They should be supervised to the an appropriate level for their age, all of that stuff. But good God. Like we're getting to this point where people are like, oh, my kids can't even play outside in the backyard that's fenced in. It's like, no, they really just generally can. But if you're undocumented in some shithole apartment owned by a seedy landlord that has a bunch of cartel operatives in it, yeah, don't let your kids out of your fucking sight. Anyway, not to get too far into that subject. We've got Jamie Argueta, Weisberg D. 2015, The Law of Crime, Concentration, and the Criminology of Place, Criminology 53-1 133 to 157. Here's your site. It's not the first. If you want that 1995 seminal study done by Sherman, I study this. Oh, thank you. Jamie or Jaime Argueta. So he's got the citation right there. The Law of Crime Concentration, the Criminology of Place. There you go. That is the citation for you for whoever was asking for it. And man, what a fucking great super chat that was. Thank you. And real quick on topic, Rolf Mutzelberg says, see, criminal justice grad sociology isn't real. We use geographics instead of demographics. Works exactly the same, but without the baggage. Cops on dots is just profiling, but using maps instead of profiles. Yeah. But they have to be very careful because if there's a disparate impact, they can get accused of all sorts of shit. So there we go. There we go. Okay, we're going to finish up this topic over on Rumble, but I'm a little bit past my window here. Supposed to move over after an hour. I'm still getting better at that. Like I said, I'm past the window. What you don't want to be past the window on is your retirement. And birchgold.com/knows is here to help you with that retirement. And how they're going to do that is by giving you information on how to keep physical assets in your 401k or IRA, those physical assets being gold and silver. Most people don't know that you can keep those physical assets in a qualified account. There are just some regulations on how you do it. birchgold.com/knows is here to help you learn about that. Look, you worked your whole fucking life to build up this little nest egg. You work your ass off. You set aside money. You sacrifice it into these retirement accounts. You don't have access to it. You got to wait till you're 60 whatever years old. And then right now, I don't know if you know this, the S&P is down what, like 30%? The Dow is down like 17 for 2022. It was a down year. They happen. And when they happen, a third of your wealth is wiped out. If it's in traditional stocks or mutual funds, you lose a third of your wealth. Boom, 1 year, gone. Now, over a 30-year period, sure, that's going to level back out and it'll increase. It'll be fine. Maybe you don't have 30 years. Maybe you're turning 62 and a half tomorrow or whatever. I can't remember the year you have to take required minimum distributions out. Oh, well, now you've lost a third of your wealth and you don't have that recovery time to get it back. That compounding interest, it's going to go up 5, 11, 12%. You'll recover in 2 to 3 years. But it's going to take a bit. I think a loss of 30%, I'm bad at the math on this, but a loss of 30% requires what, a 40% increase to get back? Because you're now working with a less amount. So if you go from 100 to 70, getting from 70 back to 100 isn't 30%. You don't multiply 7 by 1.3 and get 100. Doesn't work that way. It's more like 1.4. So anyway, I'm getting into math and finances. That's not my area anymore. It used to be. I have a little experience here, but it's not anymore. Now I'm a humble grifter. birchgold.com/knows is here to give you that information to make the informed decision about it. Look, they've got all sorts of ratings from the Better Business Bureau, an A+, I think. They've got all sorts of reviews and great shit that you can talk about from people who have tried them out. Definitely not bots of any kind. I don't know. And they don't hate you. And they don't hate me. And they don't hate speech. And they don't hate jokes. They're very serious about their product, right? And they're serious enough to let people speak freely about what they've got, about what they do, and to not go, oh my, I hope he doesn't say a mean word. Like, they don't do that. So check them out, birchgold.com/knows. Get there, click on this little green button, and they'll get you information. That's it. That's all you got to do. All right, guys, let's finish up these super chats. And then we will move over to Rumble in just a few minutes. Melly 375 sent a lemon sticker. Thank you. Bear Lamb says, Nick, did you dye your hair? Did you use just for men? No, I don't dye my hair. As I've said about a billion times, Lady Rackets loves gray hair. A little salt and pepper would be great for me. So actually sit in the mirror trying to stress. When I get gray hairs, I do not pluck them or anything because they only benefit me. I'm just trying more, trying to get more. I have one somewhere in here. She took a picture of it the other day. I have a couple in my beard over here and a couple over here, but they're not very visible. When I get a haircut and shave, they become less visible. So I did get a haircut though, not too long ago. But no, I have no reason to dye my hair. Again, it only benefits me to get gray. Edward Creed, can a cop pull the keys out of my motorcycle? That depends highly on the circumstances. Highly on the circumstances. We'd have to get really into like what happened, where they were, what their justification and motivations were. James Shart says, Larry Correa also paints minis, like lots of minis. Have him on your mini painting stream. Maybe. Hitler Youth haircut win. At least not for winter. Maybe when summer comes around, but I'm liking having a little head insulation during the winter because it's fucking cold, man. Mostly gluten. I'm for gun-free zones. Get free guns at events, like going to timeshare seminars. Me too. Oh, free gun zones. I even read that backwards. We're so conditioned, or I'm so conditioned into seeing gun-free zones that I didn't see free gun. Jesus Davila, thumbs up. Back at you, buddy. James Curran, Murphy in New Jersey thinks gun laws protect people. Hey, Phil, drive on the New Jersey Turnpike with a 65 mile per hour speed limit and peeps do 75 to 90 because laws work, right? Of course they do not. Of course they do not. DBZ, read that one. Soulless Ginger Firearms says, do you ever have gun YouTubers on your panel? Yes. Mad Mark has a channel. We talk gun rights, news, politics, etc. Would you consider having him or any of us on your channels to add to the discussion? Of course, yes. Yes, please email me about the show. I don't know when, but yes, I would definitely consider that. I don't know you guys says, what about my neighbor's music shaking my windows daily? Can be a nuisance. Can be a nuisance. Yes. Is it a trespass? No. Sound waves are not a physical thing or have not been found to be a physical thing at this point that I'm aware of. The Sinful Puppeteer, can I get a toast for my uncle who passed away from cancer on Monday? Of course you can. Nicholas Cruiser says, oh, now it's okay to email you two-faced cocksuck. No, it doesn't. I said I don't like email. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I just hate it. I'm still going to hate it. All right, here we go. Let's see. To the uncle of the Sinful Puppeteer who passed away from cancer on Monday. Uncles have a very special place. Sometimes they're hilarious. Other times they're surrogates for parents who didn't do well. Sometimes they fulfill that aspect of parenting that is, what the fuck? Can we... Ryan, take the banner off. Here we go. I took it off. Sometimes they fulfill that aspect of parenting that a parent couldn't do. And other times they just teach you the things that maybe they shouldn't, but you really need to know. Like how to make your own fireworks or whatever. Cheers to the passing of your uncle. May it mark an end of pain, suffering, the ravages of cancer. But may it mark the beginning of a legacy that will go long into the future. Cheers. Oh, real quick, by the way, if you're on YouTube still and you want to make that transition over to Rumble now rather than in a minute or two, the link is in the description on YouTube. You can shoot over to Rumble whenever you're ready. We're almost done with the super chats and then we'll move over there. Renegade Shuriken says, you see the Rage Pig stuff being sold on eBay? No. I really don't follow that shit at all. Opinionated News Guy says, bump stocks are fun. I used one on the range. Since this, I've used it in the woods. I'm Me says, problem is political, ideological intra-governance. Opinionated News Guy says, in St. Louis, we stay away from the city. Not a bad plan. Not a bad plan. Nick F says, shall not be infringed. What did they mean by this? They meant infringe it all the time. That's what they really meant. Some rando says, could you get Ed Calderon on your show? He can discuss what's going on with Mexico and El Chapo's son, if interested. I'd be happy to. I don't know who that is or how to contact them, but sure, if they want to talk, I'd love to. DBZ says, thank you very much, Nick, for your insight. The Peep Tom Lights vid advice. I'm thankful for your generosity. Your insight is priceless. I can't afford it. No, you can. You did. He also says, shots of Pendleton, Oregon whiskey. Cheers. Oh, good luck with that. I'm drinking Barrel Dovetail. I just finished off. I only had a little bit left, but this Barrel Dovetail is really, really good, and it's not very expensive. So if you're looking for a very, very strong whiskey, this is 122.5 proof. It's really good, really tasty. It doesn't burn that bad for being so fucking strong, but it will kick your ass. So careful. And then the Grave Weinstein says, have you ever checked out the Trevor Bauer stuff? MLB pitcher in a legal battle over probably untrue sexual assault allegations, giving his career grief. Yes, I have looked into it a little bit. That's the one where the chick's like, donkey punch me, Big Daddy. And he goes, wham! And he KOs her or whatever. Woo-hoo-hoo. Spicy. I've looked into it a little bit. We'll talk about it more over on Locals, but let's wrap up here on YouTube. Or not on Locals, on Rumble. We'll see you over on Rumble in just a minute. By the way, hit that like button on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And to the Rumble watchers, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up. Hit it so dirty. We'll see you over there in just a moment. Talk to you soon. Peace.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,